Meera Khanna, a wealthy Indian-Australian businesswoman, was found dead inside her luxury coastal home in Sydney, Australia, in 2019. What appeared to be a sudden natural death soon revealed something far darker. Behind the locked doors of that mansion, her husband Arjun Khanna had already crossed a line that could never be undone, and their daughter Riya was about to make a decision that would bury the truth for months. Meera Khanna lived a life that many people admired and quietly envied. She was a wealthy Indian-Australian businesswoman who had built her success through years of discipline and careful decisions. Her name appeared in property records, business circles, and charity events across Sydney. To outsiders, she represented independence, class, and achievement. Her elegant home near the coast reflected her status, filled with modern design, expensive art, and the comfort that money could buy. Yet beneath this polished image, Meera carried a constant emotional burden. Her marriage no longer brought her peace. The relationship with her husband, Arjun Khanna, had slowly drained of warmth and trust. Over time, power in the household had shifted. Meera controlled the finances and assets, while Arjun felt pushed into the background of a life he once believed he ruled. This imbalance created unspoken resentment that lingered in every corner of the house. Their daughter, Riya, grew up surrounded by privilege but also uncertainty. She learned early that appearances mattered more than feelings. The family maintained a perfect public image, even as tension quietly grew behind closed doors. Meera often stayed busy with work, using it as an escape from the emotional distance at home. She believed that providing stability and wealth was enough to hold the family together. No one suspected that the calm surface of the Khanna household was hiding a slow-building storm. The respect, success, and luxury surrounding Meera masked deep fractures that were already moving toward a tragic breaking point. The Khanna house slowly became a place where silence spoke louder than words. Days passed with little interaction, and nights felt heavy with unexpressed anger. Meera and Arjun moved through the same space without truly sharing it, their lives running parallel instead of together. The warmth that once defined their home had faded, replaced by emotional distance and routine. What had started as small disagreements over time turned into deep resentment that neither of them tried to heal. Arjun's sense of failure grew stronger each day. Watching Meera succeed, while he remained financially dependent on her, wounded his pride. He felt invisible in a house that carried his name but did not answer to his authority. This feeling slowly changed his behavior. He withdrew from friends, avoided social gatherings, and spent long hours alone. His frustration had nowhere to go, and it quietly built into something darker. Riya sensed the shift in her parents long before anything went wrong. She noticed the tension in their body language and the way the house felt colder despite its luxury. Instead of confronting the truth, she chose avoidance. Comfort and stability mattered more than understanding what was happening. She feared change more than she feared dishonesty. The family continued to present a perfect image to the outside world. Smiles were worn when needed, and problems were hidden behind closed doors. Inside, however, the pressure kept rising. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was warning them of something coming, something none of them were prepared to face. The night everything changed appeared ordinary from the outside. The Khanna house remained quiet, just as it had for weeks. No neighbors reported noise, and no alarms were triggered. Inside the walls of the luxurious home, however, the calm masked a moment that would end one life and destroy two others. Meera was last seen that evening moving through her home as part of her usual routine, unaware that it would be her final night. Later, the house security system captured activity that raised no immediate concern. The doors stayed locked, and nothing suggested an intruder had entered. This detail would later confuse investigators. By morning, Meera was found lifeless inside her own home. Her body showed no obvious signs of struggle, and the scene appeared carefully arranged. Everything looked too controlled, too quiet, as if the house itself had been instructed to keep a secret. Emergency services were called, and the initial assessment pointed toward a sudden medical event. The absence of visible injuries led authorities to believe there was no crime. Arjun appeared composed, showing neither panic nor shock. Riya remained calm, almost detached, as if she already understood what had happened. Their reactions raised no immediate suspicion, only sympathy. The truth of that night stayed hidden behind locked doors and wiped surfaces. What seemed like a tragic but natural death was actually something far more calculated. The house had not been broken into, because the danger had never come from outside. The most devastating betrayal had occurred within the safety of the home itself. Riya was the first to fully understand what had happened, and that knowledge settled over her like a weight she could not escape. The reality of her mother's death did not bring panic or tears. Instead, it brought fear of what the truth would destroy. In her mind, everything she depended on was suddenly at risk. The house, the wealth, the respect, and the life she knew all felt as though they could disappear in an instant. She quickly realized that the truth would not only expose her father, but also shatter her own future. Reporting what she knew meant losing both parents in different ways. One would be gone forever, and the other would be taken away in handcuffs. That outcome felt unbearable. She chose silence, believing it was the only way to survive what came next. Riya moved with careful control through the house. She erased internal security recordings and removed traces that did not belong to a peaceful scene. Surfaces were cleaned, objects were adjusted, and timelines were quietly reshaped. Each action pushed her further from innocence, even though she convinced herself she was protecting the family. This was not a moment of loyalty born from love. It was a calculated decision driven by fear and dependence. Riya was protecting stability, not justice. With every step she took, the lie grew stronger. By the time authorities arrived, the house no longer told the real story. The truth was already buried, and Riya had become its guardian, whether she was ready for that role or not. The days following Meera's death moved quickly, almost too quickly for something so final. Medical professionals confirmed a natural cause, and with no visible injuries or signs of forced entry, there was little reason to question the conclusion. The case was closed before anyone had time to feel uneasy about it. What should have been carefully examined instead slipped quietly into official records as an unfortunate but ordinary loss. Arjun stepped into the role of a grieving husband with controlled precision. His behavior was calm, measured, and cooperative. He followed every instruction, signed every document, and answered every question without hesitation. To those around him, he appeared broken but composed, a man trying to accept fate. Riya mirrored that same restraint. Her grief seemed distant, contained, and mature beyond her years. No one suspected that both of them were carrying secrets heavier than sorrow. The funeral was large and elegant, reflecting the life Meera had built. Friends, business partners, and community members gathered to honor her achievements. Speeches praised her strength and generosity. Donations were made in her name, and her legacy was spoken of with admiration. The public image of the Khanna family remained untouched. Behind the scenes, legal matters were handled with surprising speed. Properties, accounts, and investments were reorganized efficiently. Everything appeared legitimate, but the pace itself was unusual. Still, no alarms were raised. As the house returned to quiet, the lie settled into place. It seemed complete and secure. But what had been closed so easily would not stay buried forever. Some truths wait patiently, even when everyone believes the story has already ended. Time passed, and life slowly moved forward, but the story did not remain as settled as it appeared. Small details began to attract quiet attention from professionals who worked behind the scenes. Financial records showed changes that felt rushed and poorly timed. Large assets were transferred sooner than expected, and certain documents carried inconsistencies that did not match Meera's usual careful planning. These details alone meant little, but together they formed a pattern that felt wrong. A private investigator reviewing unrelated financial matters noticed irregular gaps in the home's security system data. Entire sections of footage were missing, not damaged or corrupted, but deliberately erased. This discovery raised concerns that could no longer be ignored. The case, once thought complete, was quietly reopened without public announcement. Medical experts were asked to review Meera's death again. This time, the examination went deeper. Subtle signs that had been overlooked during the first assessment began to stand out. The findings no longer supported the original conclusion. What was once labeled natural now showed evidence of deliberate harm. As pressure grew, the calm image surrounding the Khanna household started to crack. Arjun's behavior changed under renewed scrutiny, and Riya's controlled composure became harder to maintain. Their carefully built version of events began to feel fragile. The lie that had protected them for months was no longer stable. Each unanswered question pushed investigators closer to the truth. What had once seemed like a closed chapter was turning into something far darker. The past was resurfacing, and it was no longer willing to stay silent. The investigation intensified with a level of scrutiny the family had never faced before. Digital experts worked through layers of deleted data, slowly recovering fragments of information that had been intentionally removed. The security system timeline no longer aligned with the official statements that had been given earlier. Movements inside the house appeared where none should have existed, and key moments were missing entirely. These gaps spoke louder than any confession. As authorities examined the evidence, inconsistencies in Arjun's account became impossible to ignore. His version of events shifted in subtle ways under repeated questioning. What once sounded confident now felt rehearsed. The pressure revealed cracks in the calm exterior he had maintained since Meera's death. Investigators began to see a motive rooted in control, resentment, and fear of losing everything. Attention then turned toward Riya. Forensic analysis placed her fingerprints on surfaces that had no reason to be touched after her mother's death. Her digital history revealed searches that suggested panic and planning rather than shock. The pattern told a disturbing story of someone who had actively shaped the outcome instead of reacting to it. The truth finally came together in a complete picture. Meera had been killed inside her own home by the person she trusted most. The scene was then altered to hide that reality. Riya's role was no longer seen as ignorance or confusion, but as deliberate involvement. The family secret was exposed, and the illusion of innocence collapsed under the weight of undeniable evidence. The investigation entered its most intense phase, closing in on the truth that had been hidden for so long. Specialists focused on the digital evidence, carefully reconstructing deleted files and system logs. The home's security data revealed a timeline that directly conflicted with earlier reports. The final stage of the case brought an end to the illusion that had protected the family for so long. Arjun was taken into custody after investigators presented the complete chain of evidence linking him directly to Meera's death. The financial motive, the altered scene, and the digital records left no room for alternative explanations. What had once been hidden behind wealth and respectability was now laid bare in the public eye. Riya faced consequences of her own. Authorities charged her with obstructing justice and tampering with evidence. The decision she made in fear had cost her freedom and destroyed her future. Her attempt to preserve stability only deepened the damage, turning her from a witness into an accomplice. The life she tried to protect vanished the moment the truth emerged. The Khanna name, once associated with success and influence, became a symbol of betrayal and moral collapse. Media coverage exposed every detail, and public sympathy quickly turned into outrage. Meera's accomplishments were remembered, but now they were overshadowed by the way her life ended. In the end, wealth proved powerless against truth. The locked doors, erased footage, and controlled appearances delayed justice, but they could not stop it. A family that worked so hard to maintain a perfect image was ultimately destroyed by greed, fear, and silence. Meera's death became a reminder that some crimes do not come from strangers, but from those closest, hiding behind love, loyalty, and luxury.